Minister, the €1,000 bonus for frontline healthcare workers is richly deserved, and the additional bank holiday is something that will be widely welcomed. But those gains will be somewhat hollow if the cost of living and the rate of inflation continue at the current level, which will mean, in effect, that workers and pensioners and social welfare recipients are in fact seeing real income cuts. What do you intend to do to ensure that workers do not lose out as a result of the rises in inflation?
Thank you very much, Deputy Boyd Barrett. Public service pay has been governed by a system of collective agreements since the Croke Park Agreement was negotiated in 2010. These collective agreements have helped to ensure that public pay is managed in a sustainable, affordable and orderly manner. These agreements have also enabled significant reform of public services and changes to work practices. The current public service agreement is building momentum. A new public service agreement 2021-22. This agreement is weighted towards those at lower incomes, with headline increases of approximately 5% for the lowest paid public servants. These groups will also benefit more from other measures in the agreement, including the overtime rates and premium payment adjustments that are provided for within the agreement. The agreement, as you know, provides for a general round increase in annualised basic salary for all public servants of 1% or €500, whichever is greater, back in October 21, and that was implemented. The equivalent of a 1% increase in annualised basic salaries to be used as a sectoral bargaining fund in accordance with Chapter 2 of the agreement, and that will take place on the 1st of February, just coming up, and a general round increase in annualised basic salaries for all public servants of 1% or again €500, whichever is greater, so that will benefit those on lower incomes the most on the 1st of October this year. The Government is determined to ensure that the current pay agreement is honoured in full. In this regard, an independent body was established to examine the additional hours worked by public servants under the Haddington Road Agreement. We've just been discussing that issue. The recommendations of the body have now been submitted to my department, and I anticipate the full report will be submitted at the end of this month. As you will be aware, Building Momentum is a 2-year agreement which is due to expire at the end of the current year. Government and public service staff representatives will be due to enter into discussions on the potential for a successor agreement later this year, and I expect that the issues to which you are rightly referring will very much feature and be considered in those discussions.
Just briefly on, given the day that's in it, on the pandemic bonus, I just want to say, Minister, that as well as the richly deserved €1,000 for frontline healthcare workers, I do believe carers and those working with disability should benefit from that, and can I particularly shout out for retail workers in supermarkets, because they put themselves at very serious risk and literally kept us alive during the pandemic, and you should consider them. But on the wider issue, if workers are only getting 1% pay increases annually under a deal negotiated before inflation started to rise, and it is now at 5.3%, it's projected to be 4% next year, workers are in the round losing income. They are enduring pay cuts. And of course the rate of inflation does not take into account the stratospheric increase in the cost of accommodation and rents. And you haven't said a word about private sector workers, and that part of my question which urge you to engage with the Minister for Finance on their pay situation given inflation.
Thanks, Deputy. Well, look, first of all, on the pandemic recognition payment, I hear what you have to say. We discussed this earlier on. The challenge for the government is, you mentioned retail workers. There are up to 300,000 retail workers in Ireland. There are about 120,000 carers in receipt of the Carer Support Grant, and you can do the maths, and if you add that to the cost of what the government has committed to, you are getting north of €500 million very quickly. And that is the reality that the government has to face in making a decision on this issue, and we absolutely recognise the invaluable role that all of those people played. Turning to the issue at hand, look, I acknowledge the inflationary pressures are real and they are hurting people. They are affecting people. Government is acutely conscious of that. The measures we brought in during the budget have only just kicked in the main, over €1 billion in relation to income tax and social welfare improvements, and those will certainly help on the public pay. I've dealt with that. It is about a 5% increase for those at the lower end of the public pay spectrum. But of course, the Minister for Finance and I, in answer to your question, discuss these issues on an ongoing basis. We do expect that the level of inflation will moderate. It will subside over the period ahead. That's no consolation to people right now, and we believe the government's measures will help people who are struggling at this point in time with inflation.
Well, I would just say the Duns workers have shown the way. Traditionally low-paid workers who kept us going through the front line, they put in a pay claim and they got 10%, and that's what they deserve. And quite frankly, especially after COVID, retail workers, lower-paid workers should be getting pay increases in that order. And the government should actively try and facilitate that. And similarly, I mean, last night at the Parliamentary Budget Office pointed out to us the state contributory pension, I presume it's for the non-contributory as well, and all social welfare payments are actually losing out. They're going to be, in real terms, 2% less well off as a result of inflation, unless we index link their increases, which currently they aren't. And similarly with public sector workers, if it's 1% and inflation is 5 times that, workers are losing out, and the government have a responsibility. If they're serious about rewarding workers for their hardships during COVID, then they have to do something to compensate workers for the rising cost of living.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy. You know, I have acknowledged that the price pressures are impacting on people negatively. It's not just energy prices, though the headline inflation rate has been driven up substantially by energy prices, but we're also seeing it come through in rising food prices in our supermarkets, and of course that is a concern. But I think you have to look at what the government is doing in the round. I spoke about the public sector pay improvements. We are seeing wage improvements across the private sector as well. And then when you add to that what the government has done in the context of the budget, with over €1 billion provided by way of social welfare improvements and taxation reductions, and also what we are doing and planning to do much further in the area of retrofitting, which will greatly assist people in reducing their energy costs, and that will make the whole system much more sustainable. And I look forward to the implementation of the credit that the government has committed to as well in relation to electricity costs. So we are doing a lot, and government always keeps these issues under review.
Thank you.